All right, Heather. A through Z.
I'm gonna go with W.
W. On the internet, there's a lot of pissed off white people.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
What for this time?
Typically the same things. Just black people existing. They really hate that. Most specifically, it's Nico Parker playing Astrid in the How to Train Your Dragon live action. Everybody's like, oh, there's no black dragon or black Vikings. That's erasing history and all this bullshit and whatever. And even when you bring up like, but guys, you know, it's mainly a movie about dragons. They go, yeah, but the people are Vikings and that's my culture. Honestly, most of these people aren't a thing. You know, the funny thing is everybody's like, oh, but Vikings, my culture. That's not really a thing. Like, if you really look back on it and things like that, you can't go, oh man, I was 15% Viking. That's not a thing. Viking is more or less a job. It's an occupation. There's not really a Viking society per se, you know. Like, Vikings are a job. Those are kind of like the sea roaming raiders, not just society, you know. So that's not really a thing. Now, you could be Scandinavian, you know, you could be, you know, Finnish, you can be Dutch, you can be, what are it's Norway, Finland. Oh no, what's the other fucking country? Denmark?
Danish?
Yeah, Danish. You can be Danish. And see, and then it's what always fucks me up is Norway. Because it's Norway. Well, I guess Norwegian. But who are the Dutch? I don't know. All those countries. All those just weird white people that eat fermented eel. They're all weird. What is it? Like lutefish or something like that? It's like fermented shark babies or some bullshit. They just eat a lot of weird shit up there. Anyway. Yeah, that's kind of the ancestral thing, is that, not Viking. That'd be like, yeah, I'm 1/10 accountant. Like, not really a thing, guys. But also, you can't be just mad at this one young woman. No one in this movie is actually Scandinavian. Like, the main guy is not Scandinavian. Nick Frost, we know him, we love him. He's in all those, you know, Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright movies. We all love him. We all love Nick Frost. British as fuck, not Scandinavian. Gerard Butler, I believe he's Irish, not Scandinavian. You know, so many people in this movie is not fucking Scandinavian. Shut up. Don't get mad just because somebody is melanated and complain about them not being Scandinavian when no one in this movie is. And also, when it really comes down to it, dragons, shut up. Like, dragons.
I mean, is it also weird to say that, like, yes, Vikings were real, but, like, this is a live action of cartoon characters that aren't real? So why does it matter? Or animated characters, I should say.
I mean, it's they always end up running back to the same thing. They always run back to the same thing. Well, what if we made Black Panther white? Like, that's always their go-to defense as to why they can be offended that white people are made black in these movies. Which just shows, no media literacy whatsoever. no idea of how to grasp context. You know, it would legitimately be like a more apt comparison, like if you really want to talk about like T'Challa being played by a white guy in a movie, if you really want to get into it in something like that, the closest thing you could do about changing a white person into a black person that would be the same type of flip would be like Denzel Washington is playing Robert E. Lee in this movie. Like, if you want to get offended by that, I'd kind of get it. Because that's a real historical thing. There's actual relevance in Robert E. Lee being white. You know, because he was all like a slave owner and bullshit. So like it like context, everything, like it leans into that. You know, no one's asking for Angela Bassett to play Queen Elizabeth II in a movie. Because we all understand contextually that would make no sense. Like, she could be the best actress that tried out for the role, but you know, you might go, context would be a little off here, guys. What if we did? Who would blame them? Now, I think that'd be a fantastic movie. Who wouldn't want to see Angela Bassett play Queen Elizabeth II? That'd be just fucking glorious. But you know, that's not what we're here for.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard some people with the argument about sort of the similar thing with the show Bridgerton, and people getting upset about the fact that, oh, but like if it's being historically accurate, then people of color at that time wouldn't have that position or whatever it is. And I'm like, but it's not real. And it's also like, it's fictional, but also why does it matter for the story that they're telling in the show anyway? You know? So I don't know.
It's not even historical, really. It's softcore porn put in a period setting.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, it's a period piece more than historical. So that's why I don't understand why, because it's in a historically different time, people get upset about it. But I don't understand why. Like, and also same thing, like, what is his name? Regé Jean Paget. Who doesn't want to watch him in something? Like, that's just a weird battle to fight. I don't know.
Yeah, it's I've heard that Black Panther argument before. That was kind of going around when The Little Mermaid was coming out. And Halle Bailey was playing that character, and
that's why I brought it up, because like that's, like I said, the go-to every time. They always go to Black Panther.
Yeah, and the thing is that like with Black Panther, it's a little different because he's not just like a make-believe character that you can just palette swap with any race and be like, oh, you know, Hispanic guy can be Black Panther. The whole point of him being black was because Stan Lee felt that there weren't enough black superheroes. The whole point of him, that was the whole point. That's why he was like, I want black. I'm creating this character because there's not enough black representation when it comes to superheroes. So I want him to be so I want there to be a black superhero, somebody that represents them. So Black Panther is not just black just because his culture, a lot of his identity is also black. His culture is black culture. He comes from Africa. A lot of the designs of his, you know, everything from the clothes he wears to the designs of the suit and stuff like that, it's got its roots in African heritage and stuff like that. So that's why he's black. It's not just like, oh, well, it's a make-believe character, so we ought to be able, so yeah, just a white person be Black Panther. I don't think that's the same as this make-believe world where there are these characters that are Vikings in this universe where they can ride around on dragons and stuff like that. Like, if How to Train Your Dragon was somehow more about like the culture of Vikings, the identity of Vikings, or like if it was about like actual Vikings that lived at that time or anything like that, if there was anything culturally or racially that had to do with How to Train Your Dragon, maybe I could understand this argument more, but there really isn't, though, because like we were saying, it's more of a made up story using these characters. It's made up story using something, really they're characters based on Vikings, but they're not like meant to be actual Vikings. Like, this is a make-believe world where they're riding around on dragons. I don't think it's the same thing.
It's like,
I think it feels like apples to oranges.
Go look in a history book. Is Burke a thing? No. Like,
exactly.
It's a made-up culture.
Yeah.
With
it's made up.
With all these things. And the thing is, too, with it, what is a big defining part of like Wakandan culture was isolationism. Mm-hmm. So it is actually very important that Wakanda is in Africa, because it is the statement of this technologically advanced isolationist colony or country is hiding in Africa that was being colonized. And part of the thing is that they even have to cope with them allowing colonization to happen around them, because they could have helped and they didn't. That's a part of Black Panther. That's a part of the story that is historically set in that area and is actually important to the real world history that they've adapted into their comic book movie history. The way I look at it is, if Astrid in this movie was white, would it change? Like, would anybody give a fuck? If they actually made this whole movie a cast of a bunch of white Vikings in a thing, would anybody throw a fit? Probably not.
No.
You're only throwing a fit because one of them is black. And I think someone else might be, Latinx or something. You know what I mean? It's just because somebody is black. Only reason why you're throwing a fit.
Yeah, but it has nothing to do with like the culture, because some characters have to be what they are because they really are a representation of that culture. Like for instance, in the Black Panther movie, the reason why Killmonger in a lot of ways reaches T'Challa has to do with the fact that Killmonger was from there, but he is someone who grew up being a Black American. He understands that struggle and was there to see a lot of persecution and understand it and everything like that, and was in the military, and he saw the prejudices and stuff like that, and he felt like, man, but I'm from here. You people could have helped, but you don't. And I can take all of this. I can militarize Wakanda. I can use these resources and this technology to help where you didn't, but you should care about this because you're Black too, but you don't care about other Black people. And I want to, that was part of the message. Would any of that make sense if T'Challa was white? He wouldn't even grasp what Killmonger's talking about.
It's such a different movie if that was
he wouldn't even be moved by Killmonger in any way, shape, or form. He wouldn't understand what Killmonger was talking about.
If it was just Martin Freeman instead of playing the US guy, he was T'Challa. Just sit there going like, but guys, I don't see color. Okay. We're all just Africans.
Yeah.
And you know,
exactly.
I'm African, you're African. We're all the same. I worked my way up to being Black Panther. They just got to work their way out of being poor in America.
Exactly, right? Like, could you imagine Killmonger pleading to Ryan Gosling, saying, Ryan Gosling, you should want to help others out there like us. Why don't you want to help the other brothers out there?
And then Ryan
like
Gosling's
us?
like, what,
Like-
ripped people?
Yeah.
Attractive ripped guys.
People with 3% body fat?
You're right, Killmonger. People do need to eat better. Then they could be ripped like us. Like, it
Right.
just, it absolutely doesn't make, and that's just, again, it's white people missing the point. And that's because they have never really been in the position of not being represented.
Yeah.
They don't really I don't think they fully understand
It's
how different like those characters are and character traits and stuff like that. When you've like had every kind of character there is to have, be white and everything like that, I think
come on.
it's easy to like.
Angelina Jolie's even played a mixed race black woman in a movie. Like,
Yep.
I mean, come on. Like, we've literally, white people have played every single race. And I'm not even talking about as a caricature or like as, you know, like any of that. I'm talking about seriously. White people have played every single race on this earth
Yeah.
in a dramatic role.
Yeah.
Well, and my thing too is like, I could be wrong on this, but I don't recall people being upset at the fact that in the animated How to Train Your Dragon, Astrid, who is white, is voiced by America Ferrera. And nobody was like freaking out about that, right?
No, nobody was then either. But also,
Yeah.
none of them realize she's voiced by an Asian woman in the TV shows. It's fantastic. If you
Oh.
actually go in any sort of representation with Astrid, she has been essentially outside of her animated persona, has only been played by non-white people.
That's kind of like really ironic then, considering this whole thing. Like, that's crazy.
I mean, to touch on what you were saying though, Jastin, white people have a real hard time understanding what culture actually is.
Yeah. They do.
Because white people seem to think whiteness can be and is a culture. And it only really is in the satirical or like parody sort of way. Is whiteness a culture? Because it's not. You can be Italian. You can be Scottish. You can be British. You can be Greek. You know, that's the thing. Most Greeks actually kind of get mad if you call them white. But to everybody else, they're white. So, you know what I mean? But it's that. Those are cultures. Or that's where you can have cultural representation. You can even have cultural representation into the regionality of where you're at from America. You can be a Chicagoan. You can be a Midwesterner. You can be an East Coaster, a West Coaster. More specifically, you can be a Virginian. You can have a sense of culture in Virginia, about Virginia. But all of these things of like, and the thing is too, and I think the reason why they don't understand it is because they're confused by what the concept of a culture would be, especially when it comes to Black culture. Because in Asian communities and Latinx communities and different communities of people of color, they can, you know, you can have a Thai culture, but you can also be have Asian culture, and you can also have Thai culture. You can kind of split those up. Whereas there is African culture and there is different cultures within Africa. But then on top of all that, there is the culture of like Black culture in America being a uniquely developed thing that has only essentially existed in its current state to a degree since 1865.
Yep.
And this is not a culture based on where you're from. This is a culture based on we are now here and we are moving forward.
Yep.
It's a unique culture that was built within our country based on white people's culture of stealing fucking people from other countries. And then now going, you're stuck here. And then now going, I guess we just had a war about it and half of us lost. I guess you're free. It's a developed culture that is also diverse within itself. Like Southern black people are different than Midwestern black people, just like Southern American, like white people are different from Midwestern white people. There's still different aspects of it, but there is, for the most part, why you'll hear black people say things like of the culture, because there is still a uniqueness to the American black culture that most cultures in the world don't have. And they look at that, and I know what it is, Jastin. It's going to be the same thing with so many things, because white people get so jealous about shit. That's what it is. They're jealous. Because when you look at pop culture, when you look at so many things, America idolizes black culture whilst also kind of hating black people. And it's the same thing,
it's
but that's
true. It's this weird paradox, but it's so true.
But it's also the way white people have been towards black people in America forever. They're like, oh, I love how strong you are. I love all the free labor I get out of you, but I fucking don't look at you as a human being. Oh, now I guess you have rights, and I guess, you're a part of the economy, and I guess, you have your own sense of freedom in America, but I will do everything I can to take it away from you. Like, it is always that conflicted nature in this country when it comes to that stuff. And I think that's what it is. Because white people, they legit, the white people that have problems with so many of these things, they legit want a White History Month. They want December. I hope I don't know of December being a history month for any sort of thing. It just would make the most sense if you were going to do it, because it's snowy and cold everywhere and kind of shitty. Most people hate it, so it would kind of make sense why December would be White History Month if we were doing one. But they just want that because they want it to be called White History Month. That's it. Not realizing that 99.8% of all history we learn in this country is essentially white history.
Yeah.
Like, I hate to break it to people, but do you think the Revolutionary War is not white history? Like, let's be real. Well, black people did help us become a country. It's not like they gained any independence in that. That's not really that important in that type of thing. That is just white history. Even the Mexican-American War is less Mexican history because they lost like a third of their fucking country. We just went in and fought them and took a third of their shit. That's white history. Like, you're really hard pressed to say a damn thing that's happened on a global scale and it not kind of partially be at least 50% white history. But they want the label. Because why? They're jealous of the label. That's why straight people they want a straight pride parade. I thought we had that. That's the 4th of July parade. Yeah. Is it not? Is the 4th of July parade not the straight pride parade? Because only straight people really wear that much red, white, and blue. I'm just saying. But yeah, they want the label. They're jealous of the labels. And they want it to be a label they put on. Because so many straight people get mad if you call them cis. Oh man, they get so mad at that. Because it's not their label. Because because they want those things. You know how like there's the trend in American cultures where people more or less within a culture reclaim slurs that were used against them. That's something they've done in the queer community. That's something they've done in the Black community. They've done it in a lot of communities here. And I think that that's why white people are mad at like cis, because like that's just a label that's put on them to like identify something now, and they don't get to choose it. They don't get to have that cool like reclamation of anything. It's just placed upon them. But it's also like the same people that get all mad about this. They also get mad at pronouns, but then they also don't know what a pronoun is. Also, like, I won't even do the normal ones that conservative comedians use all the time, but they'll be like, you know, my pronouns are red-blooded American. Not a single one of those words was a pronoun.
Yeah.
Not a single one of them. And they'll also get mad. There's one guy on TikTok that was mad about the word cis because of pronouns. He's like, if I have to use your pronouns, you can't call me cis. And it's like, well, one is an adjective. In other words, are pronouns. Wildly different types of grammatical structure there. Like, once again, not understanding what the fuck they are so irate about. And it's because they're jealous. Because no alternative or POC color or culture or anything like that in America is jealous of anything in white culture or straight culture outside of privilege. People are jealous of our privilege. Totally get that. But nobody's going, man, those white cookouts are where to go. I want that straight white hairstyle. Nobody's jealous of shit with us outside of privilege. That's it. That's all we got. And I get it. But that's also why I did not even, it did not even register to me that people were going to be mad about Nico Parker playing Astrid until I saw people being very mad about Nico Parker playing Astrid. I watched that trailer and I was like, did you see Toothless? They fucking cloned dragons. They made dragons into a real thing in this movie. It looked fucking beautiful. And I hear all these people going, How to Train Your Dragon. And I'm like, you're about to talk about how great the dragons are. And they're all, Astrid's black. I'm like, we are on two different frames here. Did not even click. Like,
and then what sucks about it is that if for some reason it doesn't do great numbers, it doesn't do well, then they get to go, see? Woke is broke. And but they'll be right. It don't matter what you say. They'll be right. Because see what happens when you race switch and you didn't have to.
Didn't The Little Mermaid do pretty well?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay. I think that's all they care about, really. I mean, also, like, why? I just, like, did you guys see that trailer? Did you see those pictures of Toothless?
It's exactly the same. Yeah.
Dude, he looks like a real goddamn dragon.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll watch it right after that we do this.
Dude, he looks so good. And I'm like, why would you do, like, even if they do a shot for shot remake, that'd be kind of lame as far as movies go, right? I wouldn't want to see that, but even if they did that and they did it just to show off how good they could just make dragons look, I could probably come out of that movie going, well, the story's the same thing again, but damn, those dragons look good, and probably give it a 70, at least just off that. Because, I mean, we know the story of How to Train Your Dragon. That's a good movie. Like, How to Train Your Dragon's a good movie. So if you just do that again, but give me breathtaking dragons, I'll probably be okay, at least, coming out of that theater. I might not be excited, but I wouldn't be unhappy. You know, it's like,
yeah.
I mean, I'm excited to see it. Like, I like the fact that, like, Nick Frost is going to be in it playing the blacksmith guy, and, you know, Gerard Butler's coming back, but we're going to get him as a live action Stoic. Like, I can't wait to see that gigantic fucking dragon that's at the end of the movie. Dude, it's going to be sick.
Yeah. Damn, it does look good. I'm looking at it now. Yeah, Toothless looks pretty damn raw.
Yeah. My only worry is every scene I've seen from it so far, I'm like, I remember that exact scene in the cartoon. And I'm like, are they just doing a shot-for-shot remake? Is that all they're doing? Because that's all I've seen. But all this, though, it was really fantastic because we had white people freaking the fuck out on TikTok for two different things. And it was really crazy because it was both about black people. Absolute Batman. People on the internet are super mad right now at Absolute Batman because Barbara Gordon's black in it.
Uh-oh.
I'm not even talking about Barbara Gordon Batgirl. I am strictly talking the character Barbara Gordon, who is a cop in this universe, is black. And she has appeared on like one fucking page in 2 issues. One fucking page.
Wow.
And you would have thought that this comic book was nothing but black people talking about destroying the white race based on the internet reactions to Barbara Gordon appearing in one panel as a black woman in this alternate universe.
That's wild.
Man.
But also, go read Absolute Batman. Super fucking good. Go read Absolute Superman. Super fucking good.
What's some Superman? For real?
Oh, dude, in this alternate universe, this isn't spoiling anything. This is the whole point of the Absolute universe. In this universe, he grew up on Krypton. And on this planet, on this version of Krypton, there's like a caste system. And like scientists rule Krypton. And you would think, oh, you know, Jor-El's going to be a scientist because that's what he always is. No. Jor-El was a laborer. It was like in the mines. And so the Superman S is the symbol for like the laborers. The slave caste of Krypton. And so he comes to America. Like he comes to Earth as an adult. And he's just like, I'm just going to fight for the oppressed people. Fuck all this capitalism bullshit. I'm here to save the workers. Fantastic. Also, they're doing really cool shit because since he hasn't been on Earth his whole fucking life, his powers kind of run out. Because his battery isn't fully charged. So they do some unique shit with it. Probably one of the most interesting Superman books I've read in a very long time. But my biggest recommendation of all of that is go read Absolute Wonder Woman. Oh, that is chef's kiss fucking amazing. This is Wonder Woman. She is an Amazonian. You know, as she is. She doesn't grow up in Themyscira. She grows up in hell. And the Wonder Woman villain of Cersei is the one that raises her.
Oh, damn.
And I'm not saying that because she is an evil Wonder Woman, because she's not. She is still Wonder Woman. She is also fighting for the oppressed because she grew up being tormented in hell. Yeah. It is some good shit. I'm just saying, anybody that's grown up, especially on the big three, and you want just something legitimately different that isn't just, you know, ooh, what if Superman was bad? What if Wonder Woman was bad? And that's most of these, like most alternate universes are like, what if this person was bad?
Yeah.
No, it really is. It's like, what if this person was them but different? It legit is, what if they were different? What if Bruce Wayne was middle class and one of his parents was still alive? Like, yeah, it's some interesting shit. Because it legit changes the point of views and perspectives as to why they do what they do. And not just bad. Because, I mean, and Jastin can attest to this. That's the number one thing they love doing to Superman. Going, man, we've got a cool, wild, new take on Superman. What if he was bad?
Yep. What if he was just not good?
And then like 3 years later, they're like, guys, we've done it. We've written the most unique Superman story that's ever been written. What if Superman was bad? They just do that every 3 years. It's just a, what if Superman was bad? Over and over again.
Some of these comic covers look really cool.
Oh, the absolutes?
Yeah.
Batman carries an axe, dude.
Whoa.
He cuts a man's hand off.
Damn.
It's fantastic. You know what that axe is? So you've seen the Batman? You see how big he is and stuff?
Yeah.
You see that
pictures.
big blocky bat on his chest?
Mm-hmm.
That's an axe.
Oh,
that's the
shit.
axe.
Okay.
He actually could take that off and put it on a thing and fucking cut people with it. He has a fucking axe on his chest. That is some sick shit.
Okay. Yeah, it does look like something he can take off. Yeah, I see it now.
Oh,
it does look like a weapon.
You got to read it, dude. Like, I won't even get into Alfred or any of this other shit. I won't even get into what they've done with Lois Lane. They've done some really cool shit. And I think everybody should read it. Later next year, they're coming out with a Absolute Green Lantern, Flash, and Martian Manhunter. I'm going to read those too. I'm super stoked about those. Absolute Martian Manhunter isn't that like, oh, what if an alien came here? He's not an alien. He's like the psychic alien, soul. Like he's a alien ghost, if you will, and he possesses a man. So it's not even that he's like, oh, I'm this and I'm a human. No, he's actually a human possessed by like an alien soul and stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
Super fucking cool.
That is cool. Cool.
So that's my recommendation. That also tied into our lesson of white people were just so mad at black people this week. It's just, dude, like my TikTok algorithm got so fucked this last week because I wasn't getting any of the people that were mad at any of this stuff. I was getting people's reactions to the people being mad. So it was all that and 90,000 cat videos because every other video on my TikTok anyway is a cat video. So it's like cat video, somebody replying to a 15-year-old racist kid in Britain about Batman. Cat video, somebody replying to some woman running around going, but Viking culture about Astrid. Just every other video was just something like that. It's been a very weird week. Anyway, you guys ready to get heretical?
Yeah.
Yep.
Somebody will listen to me.
Nobody knows anything but you.
All right. Are you ready?
Yep.
Come on.
Cinema Slayers.
Hey, Cinefans, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Slayers podcast. I'm Sterling, and as always, I am joined by Heather and Jastin. And tonight, we're going to talk about what we liked, didn't like, and everything in between with the new A24 movie, Heretic. We will go spoiler-free, recommendations and scores, and then into a more spoiler-centric section with time codes in the description to allow you to jump around if you so require. And with all that, I guess let's start with our resident heresy expert, Heather. What are your spoiler-free thoughts about Heretic?
I don't know how I should feel about that. Expert because I know the stuff or because I am one?
Heather, come on. You are the most blasphemous of everybody here.
Oh, boy.
You should have heard all the stuff she was saying before the podcast, guys. Me and Jasper were like, whoa. Can you not take the Lord's name in vain so much? And she said no.
That does sound like me. Thanks for just putting me on
Sounds just
blast
like her.
for everybody.
Putting you on blast, you made Jastin turn red. He was blushing.
It's difficult to do. Yeah. Honestly, yeah, I really thought this was a good movie. I think it's a solid film. Like, most of all, I loved the dialogue in this movie. It felt very thoughtful and intentional, which this kind of movie really only works as well as it does if you do have thoughtful dialogue to support the situation that this movie, and the characters are in. And it's very much mind games. So, you have these conversations that you feel like they're going to allow for people questioning and searching within themselves and being very vulnerable for where they're at. And yeah, so I think that they had a lot of great back and forth. Their points of view of each of the characters feel realistic, in my opinion, that, it makes these characters relatable. So I think that was a bonus of the film. And them expressing their beliefs and their doubts and opinions the way that they did is really a necessity of the movie. So without the dialogue, this movie really, there's not going to be much of that. The tension and the things that they built in this movie aren't really there if you don't have this really great dialogue to sort of back that up. And it gives that psychological thriller aspect to it that I really enjoyed. And I think the interesting thing about it is the movie, obviously it's called Heretic. So the movie definitely, it criticizes religion pretty heavily in general, just based off of, what some of these characters' beliefs are and who they are as characters. But at the same time, it does also talk about why religion is important and why it can be beautiful in certain aspects. And I did appreciate that as well. So I think that it kind of was well-rounded in a way, if that makes sense, with how they discuss these topics that they talk about in the film. I think the acting was great. Loved the acting in this. Hugh Grant is like, he's exactly the type of charisma that you want for a character like this. To me, and this might be like a crazy thing to say, but this is one of my favorite roles that he's done. I just think he did such a good job as this character. Like, he feels approachable and considerate, and the way that he's talking about things like always has like the subtext to it, and it's just so good. Like, it's really good, and like the line delivery and the way that he carries himself, he's just so good. And I think that it's one of those where like you really the audience even sort of questions as they're watching this, like, do we trust him? Do we not trust him? Like, I don't know what to think even. So I think that they did a very good job of making you sort of along with the two other main characters for, I don't know how we should feel about this guy for some of it, which is a really cool thing to do. It's really clever. But Sophie Thatcher was excellent. She played Sister Barnes. She's just a very good, like, we need to do what we can to get out of here type of character. And I think that Sister Paxton, the Chloe East, was also fantastic. I was surprised by her character as the story progressed, and it was a pleasant surprise. Like, I think that it really, there's only like 3 people in 97% of the movie. So their dynamic really made this movie work, and that's what it needs to make this movie work. You have to have that dynamic really be there with them, and it was for me. I think that the story is paced pretty well. It jumps into the intensity pretty quickly, so it didn't feel like it was like a slow burn. And it wasn't too long, in my opinion. It felt pretty much like the exact right amount of time to tell this story. My biggest issue with the film, though, is just sort of like the third act ending of the film is a little, I don't think the payoff is as satisfying as it should have been. It starts to feel like they add some things that take away from what made the rest of the movie as intense as it was. Part of the answers that they're searching for, it doesn't really feel like it's explained the best. And the full conclusion was slightly underwhelming. It just felt like they got a little less careful with how they wrapped it up, considering how strong they started. It's not really enough to say that it's a bad movie by any means, but it's just enough for me to say that the movie is good and not great. But overall, I think it's a solid film. I was engaged and interested the whole time. They were great at building and keeping tension through most of the film. And it's a unique story. So, and it also had just interesting characters. So, yeah, overall, I would say I liked this movie.
Now on to our resident expert in, what was it, Jastin? Christian miming?
Yes, that was it.
Okay.
We'll go with that. Close enough.
What was it? What was it called, really? Because remember when we did that one Sterling K. Brown movie? And you brought up that it was real, and I didn't know it was real? That's all. Yeah,
I remember. I do remember.
I think about that randomly all the time. I was just like, I can't believe that shit's real. It just comes into my mind. I'm just like, I can't believe I didn't know that shit's real.
Yep. My mom was telling me the other day that there was a church anniversary and 2 people that used to do it did one for the church. So
amazing.
It still happens, Sterling.
It's still a thing. Man.
Yeah. Yeah, brother. It's never going away, dude.
It's crazy. It's just crazy.
It's never going away, brother. But But anyway, with this movie, yeah, I mean, I really liked it. So this is two movies in a row for me that I really liked. This is, I mean, when I going into this and listening and looking at the premise and everything like that, I thought that this was going to be more of like a trapped in the house horror movie. And I guess at times, like a close space, close corners kind of horror film. And I guess at times there are elements of that. But definitely this is way more cerebral than I thought it would be. It was way more Jigsaw than it was Jason, I guess, if you will. You know, it's really more like that, you know, than anything. And it's not scary or building tension like for jump scares in like the traditional way like that. I mean, I can only remember maybe one or two jump scares that are like actual, like they tried to get you to jump in this, but everything, but really it's way more cerebral. It was almost like it was almost like Saw mixed with like maybe Escape Room mixed with like, you know, because you're talking about these things. There's all this kind of challenging of views and ideologies and everything like that. But at the same time, there's kind of this mystery and you're trying to figure out what is this character's true intentions. And so there's quite a bit going on, but I think it all comes together pretty nicely. I think it's a very interesting movie. I think it's one that after it's over, I could see people rewatching this and trying to pick apart what happened or what certain things meant or what did you interpret the movie as. I feel like when you get to the end, maybe the issue that you had, Heather, is that I feel like it's one of those kind of ambiguous endings, sort of, where I think there are two different interpretations of what possibly happened at the end, but not like this is poorly written, so it's in a bad sort of way. I think if I'm right, the two interpretations actually fit what was happening in this movie the whole time, you know, especially when you think about the concept of the disbelief versus the belief, you know. I think the movie sets itself up at the end where it's like, it's kind of one of those things where it kind of puts it back on you and asks, what do you believe happened? You know, did we get out or did we not get out? And I can explain a little bit more about that later. So I think it's kind of meant to be that. I think what you believe happened probably says more about you than it does anything else. And I think that's kind of the point of this movie. I think on the surface, maybe at times it feels like something that is attacking religion or attacking non-believers or attacking believers, whatever the case may be. But I think really it's a movie that attacks certainty. And I feel like we're getting a lot of movies like this lately. The movie that we just did about the Pope
Conclave.
with yeah.
I thought you were going to say Wild Robot. I was like, I do not see the similarities. But then you said
no,
Conclave, and I'm like, makes way more sense.
yeah. Conclave. That movie was kind of an attack on certainty. It had the religious dressing and background, and we're dealing with people who are in religion, but ultimately it was about certainty or the lack of it and how that goes into what a person believes and disbelieves. This one, I think even more so, is about that. I think this one is definitely about that. Last year, Anatomy of the Fall, I think, is a movie about that attacks the certainty of detail. We're in a courtroom, but that's what that movie is about. It's an attack of certainty. What you believe, what you don't believe. What is it that you actually believe when you don't necessarily have the truth presented to you? And I think there's real value in that because it says something about you, whether you believe something or disbelieve something. It all comes back to saying something about you. And I think that's what the heart of this movie is. And that's probably why I liked it so much. But beyond those philosophical things, really, even if all of that goes over your head and you don't get it, I think it's still just a fun movie. It's fun. It's a brain teaser. It builds tension well. And you have 3 awesome performances. And I mean, I agree with you, Heather. I think this is the best I've seen Hugh Grant because at time he's Hugh Granting, but the Hugh Granting is perfect because this is a character that is meticulous and needs to come off charming and needs to lure you in some sort of ways so that we can then start to do what we're doing. So the Hugh Granting works in that way. But man, when it was time to flip the switch, Hugh Grant came off as he could be very chilling and scary and intimidating and somewhat just like unpredictable in the way of what is he going to do next sort of thing, or what is he going to propose next, you know? But at the same time, it's like this teasing of the brain because you're trying to analyze everything he's saying and trying to draw conclusions of like, what is this test about? You know, these characters are being tested, and the fun of the movie is trying to be ahead of it and see if you can predict what this means or where this is going. So that was like half the fun of it. And Hugh Grant just delivers a perfect performance for that. So I loved him as this, and I would like to see him maybe tackle more roles like this because he seems to be pretty good at it. You know, maybe we just got lucky here and this was perfect for him, but I don't know. Maybe he can do other things like this. And yeah, like you said, the 2 leads, Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East, were also great, both in their own ways, and how they fit into this game and how they fit into what this whole story and narrative was about was good. From the time you meet them till all these developments and things happen, they were they were really good too. But really, it's just a compliment for just how superbly written this is. I think this is a very, very well written movie. Like, it's very well written. The dialogue, what happens event to event, how it all ties together at the end, the decisions that they choose to do from here or there. I think it's very, very well written, especially in the dialogue category. I really liked what the characters were talking about. And there are very long stretches where maybe another person would argue that there are these long stretches of dialogue, and maybe somebody might think they're too long. There are stretches where we are literally just standing in a room and talking. But to me, the dialogue was so good and it was so engrossing, and I was trying to figure out what was happening so much. I was just hanging on to every word, trying to figure out what it means to these characters, what it means to me, what it means to maybe where the story is going. So all of that is very, very, very fun to do. And because of the kind of movie it is, with its religious dressing, with this whole thing about belief and non-belief and all of this kind of stuff, I also think this has some rewatchability. It's fun to go back and see what clues they gave beforehand, what parts of the puzzle you may have missed the first time, or what you see that you didn't see the first time so that you understand it even more. So yeah, I had a good time with this movie. It was a psychological horror / thriller good time, in my opinion.
This is just another. I like it. I don't love it. Again, I agree with you guys for the most part. You are wrong though. The best Hugh Grant is Notting Hill. Sorry, you're just objectively wrong. Notting Hill is the best Hugh Grant, but this is a very, very top tier Hugh Grant. Both the lead actresses were very good. I had never really seen them in or anything, so it was really good to see that. I was really surprised by that, Topher Grace showing up for just a handful of scenes as their elder. That surprised me. I like most of the dialogue in this movie. I like the things and the way it is structured to get you to think about things. I think that's a very interesting way to structure this movie. I also have issues with the third act. I don't know if we have the same issues or not, Heather. Mine has to do with structurally. The way the third act is structured, I thought was a little off. Thematically, it worked very well. So I get what you're saying, Jastin. I think thematically, the ending works very well. I think structurally, though, the way that it is paced and timed was a little jarring and felt a little rushed compared to a lot of the rest of the movie. That it felt a little disjointed to me going into that. But also going into what some of the things you guys were talking about, with its themes and its dialogue and all of these things. That's great and all. But there's a big section of this movie that is just presented as facts and presented as a appeal to authoritarianism or appeal to authority, or where they're like, this is a religious scholar, this is a theologian of all kinds of religions, and so he goes off on his like little mini thesis / diatribe of facts in the middle of the movie to inform as to who his character is. It's to help structure mentally where he is, to explain his rationale for the acts that he is about to commit on these people. And that scene really, really fucked my enjoyment of this movie. Because this religious scholar, this theologian, this expert, was just sitting there saying a bunch of fucking lies. Was legitimately saying things that have been disproven time and time again as just fact. And that really bugged me. Because if this is your character and you're structuring your character in this way, I don't know. I just don't think you should have done that. Whether or not it affects anybody else's enjoyment of this movie is solely up to them. But when he's sitting there saying words that I know to be demonstrably untrue in religious scholarly work, that it has actually been proven as a pseudo conspiracy. And I can actually trace most of its roots in pop culture. It really kind of jarred me out of the movie for a little bit. And that sucks, because that's like, beginning of the second act almost? Like, that's the rising action of this movie. And it just was a big, kick in the gut while watching this. And I'll get into the specifics of it when we get there, but I don't know. That really just kind of It's like taking a punch to the solar plex. You know what I mean? Like you're just kind of get the wind knocked out of you. It's kind of that feeling with my enjoyment of this movie. With that. But Hugh Grant is really good, though. So that helps. I mean, getting a top tier. Like, do you remember the last time we saw Hugh Grant in a movie? In that Wonka? When he was just like, hey, I'm an Oompa Loompa, give me a paycheck? Like, you remember that? This is just like wildly different. You're like,
I'm
like,
they care about their project versus don't.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, he's legit giving a fuck about his work in this movie. That's good. Because the lazy Hugh Grant is hurtful. But he was good.
Sterling, you saw Yellow Jackets, right?
I've seen the first season. I haven't watched the second season yet.
Okay. Because I just thought you might recognize one of the girls from Yellow Jackets.
You know, I might have if I'd watched the second season. And I'm not saying that she's only in the second season. I'm just saying it's been a couple of years since I've seen anybody in Yellow Jackets. Yeah. So I don't know.
That's fair. She's young Natalie, but go ahead.
Confession. I don't remember who the fuck Natalie is.
Juliette Lewis.
Okay.
It's younger her.
Okay. Don't remember her in the show at all then.
All right.
Don't remember
Fair
her
enough.
at all. So, I don't know. Maybe I should rewatch the first season of Yellow Jackets before I watch the second season because I remember none of it. Anyway, recommendations and scores?
Yeah.
Yep.
Recommendations and score.
Now that I think about it, when you were like, oh, this girl was in Yellow Jackets, I don't even know which one of the two you were talking about, Heather. You're asking me to remember two white women to be in a show of white women. I cannot differentiate this many white women. Which girl was it? That's what I was like. That was my whole point.
The brunette one.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I still don't remember shit. But I was also thinking there's no way I could remember because I didn't know which one you were talking about.
Well, I didn't know if I should answer because I was like, well, if you don't, like maybe they just look too much alike in this movie for you to remember that there was even a brunette and a blonde.
I'm not going to lie. If you do not differentiate them as brunette and blonde, I'm going to admit to you, I'm not going to know which one you're talking about.
Yeah.
I just will not. Wasn't one of them named Paxton?
Yeah, that was the blonde.
I legit thought I was talking about the brunette. Because I looked at their IMDb's and was like, okay, this is who's who. Nope. Apparently I already forgot. Not to take anything away from them. This is solely the problem with my brain. Anyway, Jastin, what's your recommendation and score?
Which is funny because Hugh Grant kind of does that in the movie. In the actual movie, he mixes their names up.
He does. Anyway, you're right, because he says it and then they say it and he does that whole charming like, oh
yeah. Yep.
He was just so fuckable in this movie, wasn't he? And that's a weird thing. If you've seen this movie, that's a very weird statement. I get that. But he's so charming. He's so charming. Anyway, Jastin, sorry to interrupt you with that fucked upness.
No, it's all good, man. We know you. We know you got Sterling's got a Sterling.
Well, wait. It almost makes me seem like a pervert. Like Sterling's got to say who's fuckable in the movie. If this
I'm
is
just saying,
somebody's
you go do
first
you, dog.
episode, I'm the worst. Anyway, so
Gotcha. Yeah, it's gonna be a recommend for me. I don't really have a reason not to recommend it. I think it's a pretty good movie, man. It's solid all the way around. It's well written. It's got some good tension stuff. It's got that dark, twisty atmosphere to it. And it's got some solid performances. So there's not a reason to uh recommend this. I mean, I guess if I was gonna say anything, I don't necessarily think this is one that is like a must see in the theater. I could see somebody watching this at home and having just as good a time watching it at their house or something.
you just
know.
got to turn the lights down a little bit.
Yeah, and maybe, and also I think too, when you watch movies at home, sure, maybe nothing about the sound editing or the special effects or anything like that in this movie make a difference, but I do think this is a movie where you have to pay attention. So if you're at home distracted on your phone or distracted by noise or other people walking around or somebody walking up talking to you, this is kind of one of those movies where a lot of it is a mystery and a lot of it is you having to listen carefully to what characters are saying, how they're reacting, and what they're doing in order to fully grasp what this movie is doing and to try to tell you what's going on. And if you're at home, it's just probably going to be easier to miss those details, you know? So maybe watching it in a movie theater where you're less distracted, arguably, I guess it depends on who's around, but theoretically, you're typically less distracted at a movie theater. You're told to silence your phone, et cetera, et cetera. So probably will be easier to grasp in a movie theater because you'd be less distracted. But really, there's nothing I could say like, I can't be like, oh, you got to see it in the theater because it enhances the experience in some way. So there is that, you know, if you miss it in theaters, it's okay. You can stream it and I think still enjoy it just fine. I guess, yeah, I'll just save the rest of it for spoilers. That's all I'll say. So with that being said, we will go. Do I think it's an A? What do I think? Is it an A or is it an A or B plus? We'll give it a. I'll go ahead and give it a straight 90. Paxton was right. Burger King does start at the top of the list out of 100.
Which one was that?
The blonde, Sister Paxton.
I hate her so damn much.
No,
I
you don't.
remember
You
that.
just said you forgot who she was until just now. So don't even start.
Maybe that's why. I could not connect with her at all. How can I connect with a human being that puts a BK at the top?
I'm telling you, dog.
Wasn't Hugh Jackman like, nah, that's some bullshit?
I think
You mean Hugh Grant?
Who did I say? Jackman?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck it.
Hugh Jackman. I think her sister Barnes said, no, that ain't cutting. And I was like, man, this is me and Sterling right here.
I do prefer brunettes over blondes, so point proven.
I
All I
literally
know is
was
BK.
sitting there in the theater though, and I was just like, oh my gosh, Jastin is gonna love that comment.
Yep. Yes.
And I forgot
You
about
know,
that comment. Why?
Almost jumped out of my seat.
Because it's almost as
Like-
forgettable as Burger King.
Validation.
Jastin,
Redemption. One
Jastin,
step at a
when
time.
was the last time you had a Burger King?
All right, Heather, you go.
Yeah, that's what I thought. What you got, Heather?
Yeah, I recommend it. I think it's a very thought-provoking movie. It makes you think about how you feel about certain things. It makes you just listen to sides of these different philosophies that maybe you haven't heard before or haven't thought about before. And I really appreciate that about this movie. And it's just well crafted and very well acted. So I think it's going to be a movie that if you like psychological thrillers or anything in that vein, I think that this will be up your alley. I would agree about the whole, like, you don't necessarily need to see it in theaters, but yeah, you just got to be in an environment where you can be focused on what they're talking about, because so much of what plays out in this movie has to do with things being said. So yeah, I agree with that. But yeah, I think it's good. I think I just, most of all, my takeaway is just that it's a very thought-provoking film, and I appreciate that. And yeah, Hugh Grant is Hugh Granting in a different way, but also in his very specific way. So that's always going to be fun. But yeah, I think it's definitely a solid film. I'm going to give it, I think I'll give it 86 blueberry pie candles out of 100.
It's pretty good. I recommend it. But yeah, you don't gotta watch it in theaters. Come home, watch on streaming. Dim those lights down nice and low. Curl up with a blanket. And just let Hugh Grant wash over you. Yeah, and I did mean that in a sensual way. But it's pretty good. I'm just infinitely less excited about it than you guys. 72 spiders in a pipe out of 100. Okay. So let me Cinescore this up real quick. I should have been more prepared than I am. So let's Cinescore this real quick. And I'm going to keep talking while I type letters into a calculator just so I can say 83. Cinescore 83. Spoilers?
Yep.
Spoilers.
I want to talk about my part real quick. Then we'll move to like Heather, because I'll let you talk about your issues with the third act, and I'll see if I agree, and we'll add to it from there. But in this movie, Hugh Grant is going on this big diatribe about how Christianity stole aspects of, if you want to call it its lore or its mythos or whatever, from other religions that predated it. One of the ones he really goes on, and that he really, they go out of their way within the movie to really draw your attention to, is Horus. The story of Horus. You know, like, he was born to a virgin on December 25th. Performed miracles. Was even crucified. And resurrected. You'd be like, oh man, yeah, they really stole a lot of Jesus from that guy. None of that's true. Just none of it. A lot of those facts that they are specifically bringing up in that section when they're talking about all these other deities that share very specific story elements with Jesus. None of it's true. Just none of it whatsoever. In fact, it's so fake. It's so thoroughly debunked. I can at least give you even the modern history of where those things came from. Very specifically, that the recent resurgence of all that goes to a documentary. And I use that word very loosely. So documentary style film, if anything, called Zeitgeist, where they talk about the conspiracy theories within Christianity, very specifically those things that Christianity supposedly stole from other religions. They go into, 9/11 being an inside job and, the Illuminati ruling everything. All these things. It's kind of a very underground, popular counterculture movie. Then comedian Bill Maher put together a documentary style film called Religulous, which was supposed to be a scathing critique of all the world's major religions, including Christianity, and had a big section about how Christianity had stolen all of these things from all these other religions in order to make Jesus Jesus, i.e. being born on December 25th, being crucified, being resurrected, all of these numerous things. Once again, though, none of that's actually true. Going back, one of the most simple things, when they're like Horus was crucified and resurrected. Horus belongs to Egypt. He's in the Egyptian pantheon. A lot of that is in the whole BC era of humanity existing. All of that also predates the Roman Empire, which were the ones that did crucifixions. Back then, if you were doing anything in Egypt, the closest thing they would have done to anything like that would have just been a straight up impaling. They loved impaling people. But crucifixions, that is a uniquely Roman trait, a uniquely Roman thing. Therefore, according to Zeitgeist, this movie and Religulous, there should be at least 8 or 9 gods that were all crucified that pre-exist the Romans inventing crucifixion. It's lazy. It's fake. It's a call to authority. And really just kind of pissed me off and took me out of the movie right in the middle of it. Because your whole character is meant to be hey, I'm really smart. Hey, I know a lot about religions. Hey, I know this and that. And I felt like the writers of this movie were like, yeah, let's use all those things we learned from Bill Maher that are obviously facts, but we are too lazy to actually look up and do any sort of research or have anything real for our character that is supposedly this within itself. And just was real fucking dumb. It really kind of annoyed me, really pissed me off. I get that won't affect most people. I get that. But when you're even, I think, presenting this movie like you were talking about, Jastin, as a movie to think, a movie to have conversations and to have ideas and, just make you contemplate things. I find that rather disingenuous when the movie doesn't even take the things it wants to talk about seriously enough to actually do real research. Instead of just doing lazy, I can copy things that were in 2 completely discredited documentaries and call it a day. Really, really bugged me. Anyway. Do you guys have any thoughts on any of that stuff before we move on? Or...
I mean, that is definitely informative. And I didn't know all of the back history of all that stuff. So I appreciate you bringing that perspective to it, because I'm sure if I did know more of those specific things, I probably would have been like, okay, because all I've heard is that, oh yeah, it's, everything that they're talking about as far as the religious aspects of it is all mostly very accurate information, which you know, the pieces I knew, like I was following, but yeah, there's just there are the pieces that I didn't know that it's nice to hear a different perspective of it, I guess.
Well, that's interesting. I've heard both sides of that. I've heard narratives, and I've just I can even remember in college history classes and stuff like that where they talked about how there are several different other characters, deities, people in other religions that have similar stories to that in the Bible. That's always been like something that I've
Yeah, that's
always heard
true.
about. And sometimes you hear about specific ones. Sometimes it's about this specific story has details or characteristics that are also in the Bible, you know. I mean, even back to like Greek and Roman mythology, there are some stories where people go, well, see, these stories kind of parallel to this story in the Bible and stuff. So that's always been stuff I've heard. And people go back and forth with what's true, what isn't true, you know, what the Dead Sea Scrolls, this, that, and the other. I mean, there's just so much out there about that stuff. I think it's harder to discern what the truth actually is versus what, you know, what has been written. I mean, there's been so many books written about that exact theory, about all these elements taken from earlier beliefs and the Egyptians and stuff, and that's where we got the Bible. I've heard this theory before, but I guess the main point is I wasn't sitting there going, yep, everything he's saying is 100% true. I think this character, and for me, it tracks in the narrative of this movie because this character was a manipulator. This character was bending the truth. This character was lying in order to manipulate these people. And even when in that scene, Sister Barnes comes back at him and says, well, you talked about these details, but what about the Holocaust and how that influenced things? Or what about this? You know, she argued back with him. And basically, her point was, you are cherry picking different things and trying to manipulate this truth about our religion. So she fired back at him about that. So I don't feel, because of that and just the way the scene came off and how they did that scene, I'm not sure the point of that scene was to take everything he said as fact or that these are the true facts we are trying to tell you. I feel like even if maybe that was the character's beliefs, or were they his beliefs? And he was just using that to see if he could manipulate two young people that are very youthful in their faith. I don't know. I feel like maybe there's a little bit of both of that. And I feel like one of the characters arguing back with him and talking about how he is leaving out important details and not giving the whole story, I think kind of alludes to it being a manipulation. So I not necessarily saying that you're wrong, Sterling. If you interpret it that way, you did, but just looking at the whole scene, I just didn't quite interpret it that way.
And that's fair on that part of it. But I mean, I guess one of the reasons why, like, I can like be more definitive about it and stuff like that, because when you're specific, like, because the most common example is always Horus from Egyptian mythology. It's Horus. Where this comes from and why it gets really weird with some of this stuff is it's not like it's up for interpretation. It's not like it's, you know, there's some versions of this or that or whatever. This specifically does come from anti-Christian propaganda. Very specifically with some of this stuff, because it is meant to tie into uh, an anti more of an anti-Catholic dialogue, because it's meant to take on essentially the argument is that the Catholic Church is the one that changed it and did this and that to help establish and create the world power that they are and stuff like that. So this stuff does specifically tie into that stuff. And that's because you'll never hear an Egyptologist talk about Horus doing these things, because that's not a part of Egyptian lore. It's just not. December wouldn't have been a thing in Egypt, back in Egypt. If you were to even roughly backdate onto an Egyptian calendar, when Horus would have been born, I believe it's like early September. You know, like these are things that are directly twisted because people aren't going to actually go and research anything with, you know, the Egyptian pantheon. Horus actually resurrects constantly because Horus is related to the sun. The sun rising is considered Horus's resurrection every day. Like it's a constant thing with him. So there are very specific things to Horus that just completely defy everything he was saying with that. And if you want to interpret it as a manipulation on his part, I can't necessarily disagree with that. With the way the movie's structured, I think that is a fair assumption and all this other stuff. It's just because of what he was saying. If that's what they were going for, and that works with 95% of all the fucking people watching the movie, totally fair. Just because of, like I said, knowing specifically some of the things that he was spouting, where they come from, why it's in there, why people use it. I've heard this very specific thing. It's almost like they took the same script, changed like 5 words and just had it again. You know what I mean? I'm very well versed in that very specific thing. So that's jarring to me. And like I said, if the filmmakers were doing that just to point out manipulations, that's fair. Because it's not really reasonable to expect them to be able to go, well, if somebody knows this part's fake, they're just going to think we're dumb. You know, I get why they might not account for that point of view whilst watching this movie. And that's fair. Like I said, they don't even have to. It's not their job. Your job is to make it for most people. But yeah, like I'm just saying, like when I'm sitting there watching this movie in theater, I'm just start listening to it and I'm legitimately going, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. Bill Maher said that, that's wrong. I remember when Zeitgeist said it, that, you know what I mean? Like it becomes a list of things I've known were disproven because of specifically where they come from. And
I mean,
no, go
ahead. I was gonna say the thing that is interesting about it is, like, yeah, I could also easily see it being one of those where him talking a lot about different, I don't know if it was interpretations, I don't remember the word he used, iterations, something like that he was using.
Yeah, iterations of the Bible. Yeah.
And so, like, I think it would be interesting if the point of that was for him to just see what he could get away with iterating something else for them, like as a manipulation. I also think it would be kind of interesting if it was like he is so caught up in all of these like iterations that he's learned and like learning all of this knowledge about all of these different things, and he's just so sure that he's right, that like the point of it was for him to be like, oh, like you're trying so hard to manipulate these girls and tell them what they should and shouldn't think is true when you also don't actually know what is true. So I think it would be interesting if either of those perspectives is what they were going for with this movie.
Yeah. And it's just, I don't know. I feel like sometimes with these movies, it's easy to hear something or see something, or when a character says something, it is easy to fact check things and go, well, what this character is saying is not true. But, and that's where I can say, okay, the movie is committing a foul. But when it seems intentional, because this stuff is coming from the villain of the movie, this is coming from the manipulator of the movie, and you directly have a character fighting them saying you are manipulating the facts. You are leaving out key details in order to make this argument and make us try to believe this. I just feel like it's intentional. So then I'm not looking at the scene going, well, is everything he said in that scene true? I'm looking at it going, well, how does this fit into the rest of the narrative? And it perfectly does, because even that argument about all these iterations and the whole point is to control is exactly what he was doing. This whole experiment is his iteration. You see what I'm saying? It was his manipulations. It was his way of doing this. It was his way of putting them in this test. It was his way of choosing a follower, if you will. And it was his way of trapping them in this situation to get them to make these choices that he manipulated. So in a way, this whole thing is his iteration of arriving to beliefs, everything down to them trying to make you believe in a miracle and this, that, and the other. It was all, this is a big liar and manipulator. So it's hard for me to accept anything he said is true, let alone think that maybe the movie was trying to lie to me in some way. I mean, I think the movie told you he was a liar and was manipulating them. So I just feel like it was on course for the character,
And that's fair. It's just, I guess my big problem with it is that is very much a pop culture like zeitgeistian way of like the specific facts they were bringing. You know what I mean? Like, this is something very specific in pop culture that I've seen. And it's one of those things where it's just referencing something very specifically that I've been down this road with before. You know what I mean? And so it just kind of triggers something a little different, especially because at that point in the movie, that there is some machinations and some manipulations that he's doing, but you don't completely know how deep of a manipulator he is at that point when that scene is taking place. So at that point, I'm seeing it through what you're seeing at that point in the movie of, yeah, he's doing some manipulations. Yeah, he's done some machinations. You don't know where he's really going with this. I think when the movie's over, I think it is a little bit easier to look back on that scene and reassess it, like with what you were talking about, Jastin, about it's showing how deep he or deep or willing, or just how he's willing to manipulate. Because he might have been using it as like a test manipulation, just to see what will you call out, what will you fight back on, what level of are we on here? Because that's kind of a lot of what he was doing early in the movie, when he's like, what do you think about polygamy? What do you think of this? So much of it is to kind of test with what he can get away with, or what will push or pull them in what direction.
Mm-hmm.
I
think he can decide who he's killing and not killing.
Yeah. And I think that that's something, like I said, you can very much more easily go back at the end of the movie and assess it, that scene as that. And I guess one reason why I didn't do that and was less willing to do that is because of the way that scene affected me is a lot of a more different reaction. So I'm not looking back at that scene and going, oh, benefit of the doubt. I'm looking back on it going, yeah. We've all seen those movies. I know where you got this shit from.
Religulous was pretty funny.
I mean, it is, but like,
I laughed a lot.
It really is just one of those movies, though, that like, I remember the scene very specific in Religulous because they're going through it and they're like, look at all the things that Christianity stole from all these things. It's a horror, like it's doing all this thing. And they've got the song Walk Like an Egyptian playing during that scene of that montage of them going through all those things. I very specifically remember it. And then when I found out that they were like, oh yeah, we found out about all this from a movie called Zeitgeist. I was like, oh, let me go watch Zeitgeist. And then I was like, oh no, what is this? What are we getting into? And then then I kind of just started looking more and more into it and going, oh, who would have thought Bill Maher's a liar? But yeah, like and that's part of it too, is like I'm hearing Hugh Grant say these things and I'm hearing Walk Like an Egyptian play through my head. It's a very confusing thing. Anyway, Heather, what about you? Because you were going to talk about your stuff and then we could talk about the third act based on what you say.
Yeah, and I think it one of the interesting things is the issue I had with that the latter half of the film is kind of what you said, Sterling, about like it just felt like even though the overall pacing of the movie I think is good, it just felt like that last act was rushed or something, or it just felt like for as much as it feels like they take their time with their dialogue and their buildup and everything leading up to this final act. It just felt like that part just sped along and it felt like it wasn't being as careful and thoughtful as the rest of the film was, at least from my perspective. But I think they had some interesting things in there, but like, I guess one of the things that feeds into that whole, like, oh, it was so rushed. Like we get a little bit of an explanation from Hugh Grant's character, Mr. Reed, about like, oh yeah, these women, they're in cages. Like he's keeping all of these women in cages as part of this experiment that he's doing, and saying like, oh yeah, they stay because, basically saying like, I could control them. They stay because I've controlled them and manipulated them. And first of all, like, just, it's been a little bit since I've seen the movie. Like, those were all victims of his. Is that right? Yeah. I found it interesting that they all appeared to be around the same age, though, unless I'm just not seeing that right. But it felt to me like they were all the same age, except for these girls that had just shown up the day of.
When it comes to malnutrition, that's going to fuck everything up. So if you are positing that it's like these people like that, you're going to have people that are way older or way younger, and just the effects that malnutrition have on your body. And I think that's the point, is it's not even just malnutrition, it's malnutrition, mistreatment, unhygienic living conditions, like him constantly spraying them with water, keeping them slightly cold. It always being, you know what I mean? All of those, systems and implementations that he had with that's going to just make everybody kind of look like just a bag of bones with skin on them. And it kind of don't matter if you're 25 or 62. You look like a bag of bones with skin. That all kind of looks the same at that point.
That's fair. Yeah, that's a fair thing. And I guess like my reason for that question is also like, I guess I'm just curious, like how often is he doing this experiment? And I just didn't know if there was like a huge gap in time or anything like that, or if it's just when the opportunity strikes, he just is ready for it. I guess that's more what it is.
That was my interpretation. Is it's not whenever the opportunity strikes. It's just he tries to set out like those opportunities of like missionaries, stuff like that.
Oh, right. Because he was like, oh, I'm interested in this information when he wasn't really. Yeah, that's true.
Like, I don't think he goes out and hunts for women. I think he just takes advantage of any time a woman comes there by themselves.
Yeah. And I thought that was interesting too, that it's like, oh, but it's always the women that he's never tried to do this experiment with any men, it seems like. And I mean, I think that plays a lot into the whole idea of, the role of what women are in this environment of a lot of religious culture, and also probably maybe his own thoughts about it of like having the power over women more so, and I thought that was interesting. And I thought that was a really, a good take to have on it, and I guess really it's just like, and it's not that these things took away from the movie, but it's just like, I just had questions that I wish that they would have addressed, because I feel like his backstory, or like going more into his whole, like doing these experiments and all these things that led to him being who he is. I just was fascinated to like know more about him through his explanation that he gave them. And we didn't really get that. And it's kind of like what you said, Jastin, where it's like, a lot of things are ambiguous. A lot of things are kind of left up to like, what do you take away as the end of this? What do you feel about this at the end? Which I'm completely fine with that. But I think it was just more of like, man, like if they hadn't rushed through, I think parts of like that final act, it would have been just cool to get a little bit more of like getting into the mind of this guy that's like, he's terrifying and awful, but also fascinating, because you're just like, how did you get this whole thing set up this way? Like, what is driving you with all these things? Like, you know what I mean? It just, that's more of why it felt to me like that last act was more rushed, because I'm like, man, I just wanted more. I just had questions, because everything that they gave me in the movie was so good. I was like, oh no, I wanted him to go into more about himself and whatever. But I think that, another interesting thing was I know that the whole thing about like him having a wife was obviously just a ruse to get them to trust him and get them to come in the house and everything like that. But then he did like make mention of her again about, when they were like, oh, did you build this place? And he's like, oh, my wife did. And I don't know, I guess I just was wondering if they were going to talk more about the wife, if the wife was ever even real. Like, I don't know if she really ever was real, or if it was more of just him, again, manipulating and saying things just because he was trying to get their trust or get them to like not be freaked out by him or whatever it is. But I just thought that was like, yeah, that was an interesting choice, because it felt, I was expecting at one point that something about his wife is going to come up as like, oh, the reason that I have all of these questions about religion and faith is because of something that happened to his wife or something like that. And I just was expecting them to bring the wife up into a more important role in the film. And I think honestly, it was just a ruse. So, but I also think that I guess the part that was maybe the most unbelievable about the film in a way was, I don't know how he survived that, just stabbed to the throat the way he did. Like, he survived it so well. Like,
that's movie villain magic right there.
Yeah, it's that villain plot armor that you need for that last part. But like, it was just interesting because like she stabbed him straight in the throat, and he still managed to like get on her level, get to where she was very quickly. And he also wasn't even talking weird, like anything was wrong with his throat. So I guess for me, I was like, come on now. Like, we did such a great build up to this. Why is this how this played out?
If I'm remembering correctly, though, she did get him kind of in the side of the neck, right? It wasn't directly on. It was kind of like to the side.
Maybe.
So
I don't
it all
quite
depends
remember.
on where you get stabbed.
Yeah, because that would be just blood vessels. Now, he should have bled out. Don't get me wrong. He should have died from that because I think he pulls it out. He would have bled out almost like in like 20 seconds. He would have been dead. But talking wise, as long as you don't hit the windpipe, talking wise, you're actually going to be fine getting there. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I have more issues with Homegirl getting up after having her throat slit.
Yeah. I mean, and like, no, I get what you're saying. And I guess that's fair. Maybe I didn't quite see where she stabbed him, but yeah, that's a fair point, I guess. But I for a minute had a problem with that with Sister Barnes getting up, but I think that was playing into the whole idea of, oh, a miracle actually happened. And like, it happened for her in that moment when she really needed to be assured of faith and spirituality because she was about to die. And I guess I feel like that's why they did that. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. That's actually probably fair. Did you think the same thing with, at least with the Sister Barnes, right? That's the one that died?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that her coming back was meant to, at least not necessarily saying it was a miracle, but it was meant to play into the potential idea that was a miracle to save her, so then that she could escape and see the butterfly on the hand? Like, did you get that too, Jastin?
Well, yes and no. Like for me, I think it plays into two different possible endings for the movie. I do think her getting up again and that miracle playing out, yes, that was supposed to be a miracle because it's kind of a callback to the whole thing of they were down there in the first place, right? And watched the woman rise from the dead and stuff like that. That wound up being a ruse with two women, but ironically, we did have somebody rise up one last time in the scenario. So I think it was all kind of full circle storytelling in that way. It was kind of playing on that.
And that is also meant to, according to Hugh Grant, that is meant to be proof of God.
Yes.
Yes. I'm just saying.
So
like,
if you interpret that ending as she got up, yes, she got up. It was a miracle, saved her, and she was able to get out. And that's kind of, I think, is one way to interpret the movie. But I think there's another interpretation where that was all imagined and she didn't get out. And I think there was a lot of discussion before any of this about what happens when you're near death and how your mind imagines things and you can be delusional and you can imagine these things and you might see things that aren't really there. And, remember how they talked about the near-death experiences and stuff like that. And one was an argument, and one she was talking about how she got food poisoning or something, Taco Bell, which I agree. Taco Bell is Taco Hell. I hate Taco Bell.
You also don't really like Mexican food.
Yeah, that's true. So, yeah, but still, I agree. But, she was talking about, what this sister explained to us, I've experienced that too, because I was at a near-death experiment, blah, blah, blah. Then you get to this, and it's like, did she really just die there? Was she near death? And she imagined that her friend, that Sister Barnes got up and saved her in that moment, and that she got out and she was free. And remember that part towards the beginning when she was like, well, when I die, I just want to be a butterfly and land on someone I love's hand and they'll know that it's me. Well, was that her imagining her landing on herself because she's dead? Or is that, or was that Sister Barnes landing on her because it's a miracle? Or was it just, So I think there are two different ways you could interpret all that.
Oh, there's
but
three.
I think there's a version where she just died in that she didn't get out.
Yeah, which is
she dies too, and saw that stuff because of because of her prayer and the person that she is, and she chose to believe. So I think if you believe that's what happened, that says something about you. But if you believe in the more morbid, no, she didn't get out, that was just her imagining herself getting out in her final near-death moments, and the butterfly is to tell us that she didn't get out. I can see it. I can see both sides of it.
There is a third way too. And the reason why I brought it up is because, well, you guys might not share the same beliefs, and stuff like that. Heather is a part of the church now. I know, Jastin, you grew up very much a part of the church. I was forced to go to church a lot, but I was never really a part of church. I was at church a lot, but I was never truly an active participant for any real section of my life. And that's why I was asking, because I was just wondering if your connection to the church and just those aspects of spirituality, if you just, whether or not you have a connection now or have had a connection in your life, if that flavors how you see it. Because the funny thing is like I said, there is a third way of looking at this, Jastin. And that is very much quoting you. And it's kind of the way I interpreted it. Is that was just the movieing at the end. That girl was still alive or came back to life and killed that guy just because, that's what movies do. And that the butterfly scene wasn't proof that she was dead or wasn't proof from her friend, was just like a callback scene that was meant to just show her, or just kind of like in her mind being like, that it's over type of thing. Like it's just a mental thing to take note of. But the funny thing is now that, especially Heather's talked about how she saw it and you've talked about these ways and all this other stuff. I'm not gonna lie, I can see all three.
And that is interesting because, like, legitimately, like, my thought was that because of the whole, like, she was near death and, like, was talking about, in a way, she was, questioning her faith as she's talking to Mr. Reed, who is also dying. For me, that felt like it was a thing of, her getting an answer from God, or from her, the God that she believes in, that I am real and let me show you that miracles are real. And basically that's what I took it as, because all of the things that Mr. Reed was saying was just so fake that it was like just that glimmer of hope she needed to be like hanging on to her faith and get out of there. That's kind of what I took it as. And that again, the whole butterfly on the finger thing was, to be honest, I don't know if that was, again, real or not, but it was for her what she needed in her own self to believe in that thing that she's always believed in. And that was like a confirmation for her, even the butterfly of like, I'm going to still have this hope of the things that I believed in. That's what I took it as. So it is interesting, though, that all the different perspectives that you can have of what that actually meant.
Yeah. And it all goes back to the two doors, right? Belief and disbelief. Do you believe? I think there's really only two ways to look at it. Do you believe she got out, or do you not believe she got out? And I think that those scenes you shape them in your head based on what you believe happened. And that to me is kind of the brilliance of the movie. It puts you like they want you to be exactly doing the test that was proposed to these two women the whole time. Is it belief or is it disbelief? And I think what you believe happened says something about you. And I don't think it's a right or wrong. I think what you believe is there, and it all goes back to what that says ultimately about you. Like, I don't believe there is a right or wrong answer. I think that this is exactly based on everything we saw, all the whole story, everything in the movie. I think that is exactly where they want people to be. But it's a fun conversation because you're right. The butterfly, could have totally been why she saw the butterfly. That could have been the affirmation of her faith. And, you know, she's surrounded by this field and there's the sun and there's, you know, it almost kind of looked like we were in a paradise almost, something like that. You know, the light shining so bright after we have been in this darkness. So her seeing that butterfly, you know, I could see how somebody could look at that and go, that was a confirmation that this was a miracle and she got out, and her seeing something that she always believed and envisioned was a confirmation of her beliefs. But I could see somebody else also going, was all of that imagined because she just, even though she was at her darkest hour and yes, she was going to die, but she wanted to believe that this is how her life turned out. She wanted to believe that because she's a believer, she wanted to believe she got out. She had that vision of herself getting out. And that butterfly was actually confirmation that she didn't get out. That butterfly was the way of saying, nope, she died and landed on herself. It was almost like, yep, she's going to die here. And the butterfly is confirmation that she is dead. Because when she spoke earlier, she was like, when I die, I'm going to be a butterfly. So maybe that was her. And then it's there for a second and it goes away. So to me, you know, to Sterling's point, movieing, it doesn't want to give you a definitive answer for the reason. You know, that butterfly disappearing now will raise some doubt in people. And other people would just go, no, it was all an affirmation of a miracle. So I think it's neat. I think it'll differ based on who you ask.
I think, if anything, though, the butterfly disappearing, it works both ways, because that could be the proof that she's dead, but also proof that to show that it wasn't just a butterfly. It's supernatural butterfly because it disappears.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
True.
Like, to me,
very true.
It fits both ears, you know, where it could be proof of it's meant to be proof of supernatural. That's why it does not fly away like a normal vampire. Why the fuck was I about to say vampire?
That's what you really thought about the movie. Everyone was just a vampire. It's
everyone
fine.
was just a vampire.
But also, like you said, Jastin, it can be proof that she's dead, because it's a fleeting near-death experience. Like, it's the ideal near-death experience, and she's now closer to dying, so it's just going away because she's dying.
Because she's dying. Yeah, and it disappeared because that was their death.
It's crazy because it does work both ways. It really does. But, and like, kind of to just go back a little bit about
what about my way? It works my way too. Fuck both you guys.
With the movie just moving?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. You guys just wanting to acknowledge each other's ways.
No, I apologize. No, that it does. I just meant from the perspective of if you do or don't believe part of, like, that part is what I meant by that. But I mean, I think, like, going back to that whole thing about the two doors, the belief and the disbelief doors, and the, you know, part of the conversation they were having where Mr. Reed is saying, like, whichever path you choose, there's terrifying things. It's terrifying whichever way you choose. And, you know, obviously we find out in the movie too that both doors led to the same place. You know what I mean? And like, so that's why I liked that scene too, where Sister Barnes was kind of like, he's manipulating us. He wants us to play into something. It's not really going to matter which door we choose. So don't waver on what you actually do believe based off of what he's saying. Like, if you do believe this is the door we're going through, like, don't let what he's saying change you. Like, I just really liked that whole conversation and that whole bit, because I think it was just a really interesting conversation for them to have, which was also a bigger metaphor and message in the movie itself of, you know, like, whichever way you go, whether you believe or don't believe in something, like, life's going to be life. Either way, life is going to life, you know? So I liked that whole thing about like, which door do you choose, and does it matter which one you actually choose?
Yeah. It's not so much about the door you choose, but it's about your belief in the door that you choose. Almost kind of like the paths leading to the same thing. I thought that was very poignant too. I was almost even seeing it like, you know, regardless of the path you choose, don't we all wind up dead? I mean,
Well,
don't all paths lead to death? I mean,
you could also look at it as, it doesn't matter if you believe or you don't believe, you still ultimately are navigating around the same world, though.
mm-hmm.
You know, like, whether you believe or you don't believe, we're still on the same fucking planet. And it is the same planet. We might look at it different ways. So one is the door of belief, one is the door of disbelief. But ultimately, it's the same world. And how you interpret said world is whatever door you go through.
Yeah. So I thought that was super neat. Like, I liked everything it was saying about that. Even just the two characters, one of them going, no, we need to stand firm on what we believe. And if you believe in God, we need to go to the belief door. But then you had another character going, oh, no, I'm trying to survive this situation. Let's go to the disbelief door because he wants us to agree with him. So I like kind of what was going on there. But to me, all those little things are really cool when you look at Barnes and Paxton, because you understand why he felt like, I'll kill Barnes because she's defiant. She's arguing back with me. She seems more like sure and confident of herself. She's confronting me and everything like that. But he was underestimating Paxton. So when Paxton sort of flips the table on him, I thought that was actually raw. Like, I guess I just enjoyed the third act more than y'all. I thought that was actually raw, how she kind of flipped the table on him a little bit.
I mean, I hadn't even brought up my part with it yet. But specifically with it, I thought the way they paced the third act, I did not like, though. Because it's like slow, tedious torture, it's like manipulation, psychologically breaking somebody down. And then it just becomes my God is control. I was like, that's a really jarring thing. Like, anybody that is going through the psychological breakdown one would have to get to become completely subservient and, you know, to the point of being able to cut off one's finger without, you know, anything, or just willing to eat poisonous pie and all those things. That's not a 5-hour thing. You know, that's not a quick, easy process, especially when you go to expose it. Like, the whole point of maintaining control over somebody or manipulating somebody into that control, I mean, yeah, you could do it through the brute force of I control you, But that's not typically the way to do it. It's typically a slow grinding process to gain that type of control over somebody. So I just thought that it was so weird whenever it got to the part of control is the one true God, and I am essentially control Jesus because I have all the power. And it got to that too quickly for me. And to me, the abruptness and quick turn into that is what made me feel like the pacing was wrong based on, like I said, what you would need to break somebody down with that. Like, that was just so quick to me. And then she stabs him in the neck and then runs around to get stabbed. And then it's just miracle, non-miracle, movie, whatever. Butterfly. Like, it's so like bam, 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 bam at the end. Like, once you get to the point of women in cages.
Yeah. I guess I agree, because it was the women in cages part. From there on is when I felt the same way. I think I feel very similar to you with that part of it. But I do like you were saying, Jastin, Paxton's turn, like her character arc, really, because I think about the scene when they first get to Mr. Reed's house, and she's just like basically reciting the script of like, I know this is what I have to say. Like, these are the words that I have to say out loud to him, or else I haven't completed the thing I'm supposed to say. Like, that was just really her only focus when she went in there, and she just thought like, all you gotta do is read this, and then, I got it down. And then to go from that to learning from Sister Barnes about like, you know what, don't just take what he's saying, challenge what he's saying. He's challenging us. Like, let's challenge him back. And just basically being that person that in her head, she was actually thinking through all of the things that happened that day or that night and figured it out. She's like, this is what I think you did. And she was spot on. She was completely right. And it really was impressive. And again, like, that's why I said her character surprised me, because Sister Barnes is the one that I thought was going to be the one to get them out. Or if either of them were going to die, I didn't think it was going to be her, because she was the one that was like so determined and like seemed very like, what's the word I want to say? I guess common sense, smart, or I don't know, something like that, where you just feel like she's the one that is going to be clever enough and maybe has had more like life experience before she joined the church of, I know how to handle this, because it kind of alluded to her having some kind of maybe darker backstory, or a backstory of she was a completely different person before she joined this church that she was a part of. So it just felt like, oh, maybe that's what's going to get her to survive and get her out of here. And it's what got Paxton out of there instead of her. And I did like that, because I was underestimating Paxton for sure. I was just like, she's going to just be like, whatever we got to do to just survive. Like, sure, we'll just agree with him. We'll go along with his little thing or whatever. And I thought she was going to be more the one to get them killed. So I did like her character arc, and that she ends up being the one we follow throughout the rest of this film instead of Sister Barnes.
I think you and me are playing chicken.
Yeah, I was like, is he gonna go? It looked like you were gonna go.
You looked like you were going to go too, so I was like, oh, I'll wait. And then you did. Then you like looked, but then you looked like you were going to reach over and touch it. And I was like, what are we doing? Go ahead, Jastin.
I stopped. Okay, so it is me. Okay. No, just to comment on that part. No, that's why I really liked it. And like, you could tell Hugh Grant was kind of sizing them both up and thinking about, who do I want to wind up in the cage at the end? Because yeah, I think you're right, Sterling. the whole point of this is to subjugate these women, which, I think that's also why he brought up the whole thing about polygamy and all this stuff. And we know that a lot of religious practices be about subjugating some women. So, I mean, I don't think that's a stranger. I don't think that is a strange concept in this. I think that pretty much tracks with what we know about a lot of beliefs and a lot of practices, like men be subjugating some women and shit. So I think so all of that tracked for me to have these women in cages and stuff. And the whole thing about the wife, maybe he didn't have an actual wife, but in a way, were they his wives? Were these women in cages all kind of his wives, or all people that he has subjugated and do his bidding and everything like that? So I think they were playing loose with the term wife, and ultimately it is about this guy, this person trying to control these people, trying to make them believe in what he believes, and subjugating women. Like, I just feel like it all kind of tracks. I mean, who was that celebrity that has that island or something, and he has all these women?
Which one?
What's his name?
But are you more thinking of Jared
the vampire,
Leto?
the one who played the Jared Leto?
Yes.
So
Which one?
I mean,
oh no.
Jastin, you got to be way more specific than island that they keep people on. That's weirdly
right.
happened too many times.
Yeah, exactly. It's too many times to name. So a man charming as Hugh Grant got some women all up in cages at his house. Okay. Yeah. I'm with it. I'm with it. I can see a man doing this shit. I could totally see a man doing this shit. But I think that's what he was doing, though. He was sizing up which one was going to go in the cage. And Barnes was totally giving off, okay, I need to kill this woman. She was a convert to the church. She didn't grow up in it like Paxton did. She had that story about her father's death and everything, and her and her mom went around shopping different religions until they finally landed on the Latter-day Saints and everything like that. So, Hugh Grant is hearing all this and seeing how she's arguing back with him and more defiant, and we got to stand on what we believe and everything. And he's thinking, oh man, I'm going to kill her. This is going to be too hard. But Paxton, you seem like the one. You're agreeing with me, even though I know you're not. And you already seem like you are subjugating yourself, even when we're not even there. And I ain't even got you in the cage. And look at you trying to go through the door you think I'm going to agree with, and all that kind of stuff. Like he saw, you are going to be great in one of these cages, all over it. So I really like that too. And I, like you said, Heather, she learned lessons as we went, but I think she was also a little more analytical than he thought too. She was seeing things. She noticed his hair was wet when he came back from hiding their bikes. She was way more formidable mentally than he thought. And that ultimately was his undoing in that way. And also there were just some fun callbacks, like how Barnes was like, okay, the secret word is magic underwear. And when I say that, you're going to stab him. And then she didn't. But ironically, when Reed said magic underwear, that's when she stabbed him. I mean, there was just a lot of fun stuff going on with the writing, but it all kind of played into the two characters that they were. So I liked all of that. And I guess I see what you're saying about the third act. I will agree at least that the pacing changed. It definitely got a lot quicker and we were moving a lot faster, but I think that's typical for just about any third act. I mean, that's the time when it's supposed to get faster pace. It's supposed to switch from what it's doing in the first and second act. Typically, the third act is where things pick up. That's where you have your big fight. That's where you have your confrontation, et cetera, et cetera. So to me, I'm not saying you're wrong necessarily, but for me, it didn't feel jarring because it felt like this was the moment where the film needed to pick up. You know, I felt like the whole point was it's the roller coaster, right? It's going teetering, going slow, going slow, going slow. But at some point, we got to dip and go through all the loops, and it's got to get faster, right? And then it ends. And I feel like that's what we did there. We were trying to solve the mystery. We were trying to do this and trying to do that. And the moment we started figuring things out, it picked up. Maybe not as far as we were fighting, but I think it picked up the pace because the third act typically, naturally, usually does that, you know?
Yeah, but to me, where it would differ in this is like, most of the time, yes, you are correct. The third act does have to pick up something. You know what I mean? You can't have, that you can't maintain that. But I think that where most of the rest of the movie was a slow building, methodical movie, the ending of this, when it does pick up, doesn't feel as, I think you could have had it pick up and still stay methodical. I think it got less methodical up until like the next stab. I think that is when you can have it go to chaos, because that's the change of the plan. You know what I mean? That's where his plan goes to shit. And I think it was starting to get too chaotic right before that, as far as his behavior or how he was doing the things with it. So that's why it feels a little bit more disjointed. I mean, when she's going through that underground cacophony of rooms and stuff like that, I mean, I was just kind of sitting there looking at it going like, how is there just not more mold everywhere? There's so much water in this basement. He's got like fresh, clean books. And I was just like, the mold issue. God, he's just going to have nothing but, he's not only does he have all his basement is mold, he's got that whole leaking ceiling thing in that other room. God.
Also, can I just say that like the awkward scene or the awkward like conversation they have when he's like asking Barnes how her dad died and he misheard it for blueberry disease. Like that's such a random thing to put in, but like, is there anybody else that could make that scene work except for Hugh Grant? Like he was so awkward about it, but in still a charming way. Like only he could get away with that.
That sounds like something I totally do when I misname something on purpose but yeah, you're right. It was funny how it got awkward, but how he was able to steer it back, that was a prime Hugh Granting, because it was awkward and she was sad and you could tell she was thinking about her dad and feeling something, but Hugh Granted it back to where it was a little more calm, because of course Hugh Grant can do that. But that's kind of like the magic of Hugh Grant. And see, somebody knew that. Somebody was like, oh, I know he's going to be able to Hugh Grant this thing back to where it needs to go. So that was a nice little Hugh Grant steer. Because it got really awkward. All of them were doing a great job because they really seemed like, oh my God, this is so awkward and I'm getting scared and this man is weird as fuck, They were totally acting that way and acting so uncomfortable, and him kind of steering it back to charming, like, oh, it was just a mistake. I wasn't trying to be funny there or laugh at your dad being dead. I really thought it was a joke. He was so great there too with his Hugh Granting.
It just felt like real actual dialogue between people.
Yeah. It didn't feel so manufactured. And even if they wrote it, if it was you read that and it sounded like it on paper, the way they acted it and portrayed it was just, it was perfect how everybody was feeding off of each other in that scene. So Yeah, that was pretty good.
You know, all I have to say is part of me feels like he wasn't actually planning to do any of that with them until that one girl was like, Burger King's the best. And then he's just like, these bitches gotta die.
All I know is the one who liked Burger King survived, or did she?
That's the thing, Jastin. You made a real strong case for that bitch being dead. So
I mean, either way, she survived in her dreams. What should have landed on her was a Whopper. If I was sitting there, Sterling,
yes.
and a Whopper landed in her hand, I would have lost. I would have read out with my hands up yelling hallelujah. I would have read out
Jastin.
and with my hands up yelling hallelujah. This is the greatest movie of all time. If a Burger King Whopper, a Texas double bacon, landed, if a Bacon King, Sterling, could you imagine her coming out of that hole to a Bacon King?
Jastin, if that happened to you, you would scream in horror and disgust. Because while you like to talk big game, you don't eat no fucking Burger King, Jastin. You'd be fucking petrified if a burger landed on you like that. So do not look at me.
By there.
Do not look at me and lie and have the audacity to lie to my face and act like you'd be happy. You'd be disgusted. If it was a naked Tindy, you'd totally be fine with it.
Or a Chucky Nugget.
Totally natural sounding.
No.
Too manly. Dr. Peppy Shaky?
Too manly.
What was that?
Way too manly.
It that did remind me that there was apparently an interview with them, and the scene when they're talking about the fast food and he says, I've never had a Wendy, apparently was an improvised scene by Hugh Grant.
Which is better than Burger King? Come on, get the fuck out of here. Man, what the fuck are they doing? Like when they're all like, yeah, Wendy's is like number 9. Fuck off. No, it's not.
8, 7, 8.
Jastin, you really put 6 to 7 other fast food restaurants over Wendy's? Really? Really?
She also put In-N-Out low.
Well, yeah.
In-N-Out was pretty low. I like In-N-Out.
In-N-Out's burger's fine, but Jastin, come on, their fries are shit.
Yeah, I don't get them.
That's a part of the whole experience, though.
Yeah, I don't get them.
What do you mean you don't get them? Jastin, you got to get a burger and fries at least once. Like, you can
I
never...
meant the In-N-Out fries.
Yeah.
I do be getting fries. I'm
just saying, because you can't truly judge a burger unless you also have it with fries. Like,
don't you like those crinkle fries?
He loves the crinkle cuts.
Them crinkle cuts.
Fucking 5-year-olds over here. Gotta get my crinkies with my chicky tindies. That's what you sound like.
Because somebody just mad.
That's what you sound
like. My crinkies.
Gotta keep my crinkies.
My chicken tindies.
Crankies? Look, man, you're just mad because the world is coming around to be gay. I mean,
the world, Jastin?
The world.
No, Jastin. More closing down. They're losing money day over day.
Well, somebody, well, Paxton likes Brie K. I mean, come on. Just give her her due. And she's
also dead, Jastin. I've now sided with you. She's dead. No.
Why you sided with me? I just said they're both there. I don't know, really. I'm not sure what I believe.
You believe they're dead. You were all in on that. You were like, man, yeah, she was dead.
Say that.
You did. Roll the tape. Jastin's all. Yeah, that bitch is dead. So I mean,
I don't know. I don't know which one I like more. I kind of like the Miracle though. I like the Miracle. I like Barnes getting up and Neganing him.
I like my thought process of he was actually just going to let them live until she was all Burger King, and she's like, "They're somebody's gonna die tonight."
Finish. Burger King. Are you serious? Oh, it was also cool how he had a little like makeshift mini map, dollhouse, whatever you want to call it.
Little model. of
Mini
his house.
model. Yeah. I don't know why model just escaped the word model.
Why did
escaped
he
me.
need that
But
though? It's his house.
So he could draw it all up, man. That just shows you how meticulous he was. This was all thought out, man.
Justin, they go to like 3 rooms. It's not like, why do you got to draw that out? Start room
But
A,
you
go to
still
room
got to
B,
be able
room
to
Z.
travel to the rooms. You got to be able to have a woman come out and when the other one's dead and switch and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty meticulous, man. You got to have the cages. You got to be able to. They got to be able to move and do stuff when they're out of the cages.
I mean, I
There's a
just
lot
keep
more
thinking.
to subjugating people than you think, Sterling.
I just keep thinking
I
about.
wouldn't know.
But I just keep thinking about what a master manipulator he is, because I think about like he's even like trying to like use their words or their thinking against them about who he is, like with the whole, oh, well, you saw my house from outside, you said, right? Well, then you know that it goes all the way up to the hill or whatever he said. And then like the whole thing about, oh, I know you weren't on your phone because remember I told you that it's metal inside and you were fine with that. Like really just trying to like make them like feel bad for actually questioning his character when in reality they were right. Like he was so master at the manipulation with them.
Even at the end, dying, he was like, pray. You know what I'm saying? Like, even, I wonder, even it then, was that like mockingly, like, yeah, look at all this horrible stuff that happened to you. Why don't you pray to your God now? Or was he going, or was it like, damn, we did really pray? I mean, I just doubt that it was that. It felt like it was kind of a mocking thing. And he was trying to crawl up and kill her, you know what I'm saying? But it's almost like even then, it was kind of like he's still testing, you know, like pray in this situation. Like after everything that had happened and what they had done to each other, he's all like, pray. But her response with that, I thought was really cool. I think you already touched on it, Heather, but yeah, that whole thing about like the whole prayer experiment, and they tested all these people. There were people praying and not praying, and they tried to prove that it didn't work, but you know, and whatever she said, I can't remember exactly what she said, but that whole thing about like, it's
the
still,
idea of them still praying is a beautiful thought.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thought because, and it's nice to be concerned for someone other than yourself and all that kind of stuff. Like sort of in that moment, sort of getting us to understand why she believes what she believes. So, you know, her surviving is kind of beautiful, or her imagining a great ending for herself in death is beautiful too. Like it almost doesn't matter, right? The doors lead to the same thing, you know? So, yeah.
Or she's just lying to herself in death.
Either way, it's all about what you believe and how you feel. Even if that's a lie, I guess.
Just saying. And I feel that they died for Burger King. You guys got any more thoughts about this movie?
No.
I'm good.
On that note, thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Cinema Slayers podcast. Check us out on the internet at www.cinemaslayers.com. We're Cinema Slayers podcast on Facebook. We're Cinema_Slayers on Threads, Instagram, Letterboxd. We're at Cinema Slayers Pod on YouTube and TikTok. We're at cinemaslayerspod.bsky.social on Blue Sky. God, there's so many fucking social media platforms. Give us a 5-star rating and review. We'd really appreciate it. Really help us out. Tell your family. Tell your friends. Tell your friends' family. Tell your family's friends. And most of all, tell those dear sweet mothers, because dear sweet mothers love
Hugh Grant.
Yeah, they do. It's almost sickening. Shout out to Plug Migo and Mundo Cho for our theme song and logos, respectively. We here at the Cinema Slayers podcast are pro slut, pro Sydney, pro naked. That's what Jastin really wants to land on his hand. Naked Tinders. Why'd you look at
though?
I mean, why were you
They are
looking at me
good.
like I was crazy, Jastin, when I said that?
You always got to knock BK. Why can't you just?
Jastin, so
Be
do you
peaceful
every
about it.
single day you don't eat it. You're voting with your dollars, Jastin.
In my head, I go though. I have visions of going and
Jastin.
enjoying it.
Between the last time you ate at Burger King and now, have you eaten at McDonald's?
Damn it!
Have you eaten at Wendy's?
No, I actually haven't.
Well, there you go. Okay, so I might understand you might like Burger King over Wendy's. Have you eaten at a Whataburger?
Yes,
Have you eaten at In-N-Out?
yes.
So we can safely say, based on you voting with your money, that you like Cane's, McDonald's, Whataburger, and In-N-Out more than Burger King.
Damn. I don't like the way it sounds.
Okay. I don't give a fuck.
Okay.
I'll pull a Shaq right now. I don't give a shit. Look that up, kids. Shaq saying, I don't give a shit. One of my favorite post-game sports interviews ever.
Shaq, we're live.
I don't give a shit. Oh, fantastic. Anyway, you know, you should try Jastin Popeye's blackened tenders. Very good. They're just like your naked tenders, but better. So try them out. Get those. If you really want to do it, Jastin, go there and get those. And they're mashed potatoes and gravy. Because that'll actually be, that's probably the most low calorie meal you can get there. It's also high protein. Just saying.
Okay.
The mashed potatoes have less calories than French fries. So just keep that in mind. I did that. Oh, yes. Justice for Todd. Justice for Chris. Justice for stunt people. Justice for animators. Justice for potential heretics. Like Heather. She needs justice for her wicked, wicked ways. Just sitting there on a throne of heresy. I just like, I like how you're just like, I don't like it. You're like making the same face as Jastin makes when I make fun of Burger King. See? Just saying. And when it comes down to it, guys, just remember, as I always end the TikToks, the YouTubes, and most of all, most importantly, this podcast, according to Jastin, Moon Knight is A Best Picture winner. And not Burger King.
I'm going to have some artist paint a picture of Moon Knight eating a Whopper. It's going to have to give it to your birthday.
He would
You're
never
going to have
eat a
to
Whopper,
put it on
Jastin.
your wall and be proud of it.
Cinema Slayers.
He would never eat a Whopper. That would dishonor his God Khonshu.
No,
And he
Now-
would die. And Khonshu would not bring him back to life.
no.
Now, Jastin, I do need to know really quick if you could make a specific Fit Crunch flavor that they don't have, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. Honestly, probably something breakfasty, like a pancake, something flavored, honey flavored, something pancake
Well,
syrup
like
flavored, something.
Pancakes and syrup.
Yeah, I think that would make a good tasting protein
bad.
bar.
You know, if they were actually going to go that route, it'd probably be easier for them to do something like a blueberry pancake.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that. But that actually sounds good. Like, I wouldn't want a burger tasting one or a chicken tasting. That sounds gross. But like, I think a pancake, something like that makes sense to me.
Yeah. I was honestly, my first thought was blueberry donut.
Oh, okay. I
But
can see
that
that
would
too.
be similar to pancake. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you could
Yeah,
do
that
like
all sounds great.
they could just do a whole breakfast line. They could do like blueberry donut. They could do banana pancake. So it's like banana and maple syrup.
Mm-hmm.
That's really about it.
What would you do for your Sterling if you could make a flavor?
See, that's rough for me because my go-to is chocolate peanut butter. Like that's my go-to flavor pairing. So I'm like, they already
Yeah.
did it. I mean, honestly, mine would be a different version of the peanut butter and jelly. Instead of it being peanut butter with grape jelly, I would probably do raspberry
Oh, okay.
Okay.
because that would be my
that would
favorite.
be good.
I love raspberry or blackberry, like jam or jelly more. So I would go that route. But I could even do something like a blackberry cobbler flavor would almost work the same way. You know, but yeah, it'd be maybe something like that
Nice.
because they got
This is
that.
back to breakfast, but a cinnamon toast.
Well,
maybe.
that their cinnamon twist is kind of that.
I guess that's
It's
true.
a little too close. Like when you get cinnamon flavors, you're kind of just like getting a little too close.
Yeah, they all kind of taste similar. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like, I mean, I get in real life, there's a difference between cinnamon toast and a cinnamon roll. But when you're making things to taste like those, it's just so close. Like they like the cinnamon roll flavor of it because you get to add that icing coating to it. So it allows them to put their coating on it. You know, that type of thing. But a strawberry French toast.
Mm,
That sounds good.
yeah.
Or, you know, even a strawberry cream cheese Danish flavor or something like that. Or, you know.
Why hasn't anybody done this? Why aren't there just like a ton of breakfast flavored protein bars like that?
I don't know. I'll write
Why isn't
Robert
that a
Irvin
thing?
a letter.
Yeah, please do. Because why isn't that a thing? Like, that seems like just an automatic.
Like you could have the protein bars and then just have them be a little softer. So it's a breakfast bar type of thing, but try to keep those same type of macros.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then have your protein bars be the more crunchy, harder bars that you can eat throughout the day. But the breakfast, just kind of have it be a softer bar. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. But it's also like, why was there not that many like pumpkin spice latte protein powders this like past Christmas or like past Thanksgiving and stuff like that? Like, why? Just like, why are you intentionally not making money?
Yeah.
Like, why are you going, huh? You know what? We don't need money. Like, just make it. But I also had that mindset too of like, even just to buy like pumpkin spice syrup, you know, to like have it home to make with coffees. You can really only find it like starting in like September. And I'm like, why the fuck don't you just sell it all year?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. You know, people buy all this stuff that people buy if flying off the rack. Why don't you just want it year round?
Like, I understand you might not sell as much of it in June. Okay, don't make as much, but you could still sell it. Like, have it be
I'd still buy it.
part of inventory. Like, come on, why are you acting like pumpkin spice syrup is a fucking McRib? Just, it's not any different. Just keep it year round.
Yeah, strange.
And also, quit making peppermint shit. Who wants that really? Who's sitting there going, oh man, I want a chocolate peppermint protein bar so I can feel like I'm eating a candy cane after a workout? What is this? Just use your brains, people. Like, also, why don't places like have pumpkin pie year round? Like, why can't I go to Walmart and buy a pumpkin pie year round? Just pumpkin pie should just be sitting there all the time.
I've had that problem before where I'm like, I just want pumpkin pie right now, but it's just like not in season.
Like, it's fucking pie, people. And I get that pumpkins aren't in season, but guess what? The pumpkin's fucking canned. It's sitting in fucking cans already. It's already preserved so that it's year round. I just feel like sometimes idiots just don't want to make money. They act like they're all super good at business. And I'm like, really? Not selling shit? That's good for business? Really? It's like when I try to go buy shit or watch shit on television and stuff like that. And they're like, oh no, you can't buy that in this country. Or you can't watch this on that. You can't do this or that. Or we're not selling that. And I'm like, so you don't want me to pirate shit. You don't want me to steal shit. Yet when I'm trying to come to you and go, hey, take my money in exchange for me to watch this shit, you go, no. I don't want to give you, I don't want your money. Don't be mad if I pirate shit if you won't let me give you my money. That's my first route every time, to try to find the way that I can pay to watch something. And just these companies go, no. Fucking like what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, Earth 2. I want to watch Earth 2 so bad. And whoever will just let me give them money to watch it. I'm like, how hard you've already made the show. It's just sitting there somewhere. Just put it on a fucking hard drive.
Yeah, take my money.
Yeah.
And let me pay you to watch it. Businesses are idiots. Especially because if I'm remembering correctly, that show was made by NBC. Why the fuck didn't you just put it on fucking Peacock? Just put it on Peacock and bury it. Yeah, I might be one of 2 people in the world going, oh my God, I get to watch Earth 2 on Peacock. But it's at least something. Put it on iTunes. Let me fucking give you money. I can't tell you how mad it makes me when I'm just wanting to scream at these companies to let me give them money. And they went, it's bad business to take your money. Bunch of idiots. But it's like you said, Jastin, why hasn't anybody done this already? Just what sounds like common sense. I don't know. Businesses just don't do.
Yeah, like those are really popular. Like everybody knows pancakes and waffles and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it just seems academic that they would just make good protein bars.
Oh man, Jastin, think about
sort.
this. You could have the pancakes and maple syrup bar, and you have the waffle bar. And the waffle just has a little bit of crunchy in it, but it's the same exact bar as the pancake, but it's just slightly crunchy to give it a waffle-esque texture.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody would care. Everybody would be like, yeah, good idea. Even though it's the same damn thing. God, companies are stupid. Anyway. I got to drive to my own personal hell, which is Indiana tomorrow. So I guess we should end this, guys.